The morning I almost lost my family's land began with flashing red and blue lights cutting through the mountain fog. Police sirens echoed down the valley road, mixing with the smell of pine smoke rising from my chimney. I stood on my cabin porch, coffee steaming in my hand, watching a white Escalade idle behind the patrol car. I didn't need to see the license plate to know who it was. Linda Whitmore, president of the Clearwater Estates HOA. The self-appointed queen of the valley. She'd called the cops on me again. Illegal structure, she said this time. Unregistered dwelling. The officer stepped out, hat tilted low, looking half embarrassed to even be there. "Morning, sir." "Got a report of a code violation." "From the lady in the Escalade?" I asked. He gave a small nod, eyes tired. "Yeah. Seems she's got a lot of opinions." Linda leaned against her SUV, arms crossed, lips pursed like she was smelling something rotten. Her bleached hair was pulled so tight it looked painful, and her perfume carried all the way to my porch, sweet and sharp, fighting with the scent of wood smoke. "You can't just build whatever you want out here," she said. "This cabin violates our community standards." I took a slow breath, trying not to laugh. "Ma'am, this cabin was here before your community even existed." Her smile was fake, practiced. Not for long. "The HOA has rules." What she didn't know, what made me bite back a grin, was that she wasn't standing on HOA land. She was standing on mine. I didn't just own this cabin. I owned the road she drove in on. I owned the mountain behind her, the creek that ran past her subdivision, and even the water she used to fill her swimming pool. But let me take you back to where this all started. My grandfather bought this land in 1963 400 acres in Montana's Clearwater Valley, for $800. Timber rights, mineral rights, water rights. The whole thing. Folks thought he was crazy back then. Too much wilderness. Too far from town. But Grandpa wasn't thinking about convenience. He was thinking about legacy. I grew up spending summers here. Learned to chop wood before I could ride a bike. Built this A-frame cabin with Grandpa's help, 1,200 square feet of pine, stone, and sweat. Legal, off-grid, and self-sufficient. Solar panels, well water, composting system. When he passed, the land came to me. After years in the corporate grind, software consulting, endless meetings, traffic jams, I came back home. I wanted peace. Air that smelled like pine instead of exhaust. Nights so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat. Then came the developers. Big money rolled in from California, building luxury homes that looked like movie sets. McMansions with glass walls and infinity pools. They called it Clearwater Estates. 32 homes. HOA fees higher than most people's mortgages. And the woman running it all? Linda Whitmore. 50-something, Botox smile, attitude sharp enough to cut glass. She wasn't just the HOA president, she was the real estate developer too, which, I later learned, was strike one for conflict of interest. She wanted my land. My cabin sat right on the border of her development. If she could buy or bully me out, she could expand phase 2 of her project and double her profits. The first move came in the mail. A thick envelope on expensive paper that felt like silk. Inside, a letter accusing me of violating neighborhood standards and demanding $500 a day in fines. I laughed out loud. My land wasn't even part of her HOA. But Linda didn't care about facts. She cared about control. A week later, she showed up herself. The sound of her heels on my porch steps was like a woodpecker hammering in anger. She looked around like she was inspecting a crime scene. Her manicured fingers brushing against my rough log railing, her nose wrinkling at the smell of wood smoke. "This structure is completely inappropriate for our community," she said, her voice sweet and venomous at the same time. "Ma'am," I said evenly, "this structure was built in 1995. Your community didn't exist until 2018. That wiped the smile off her face for a second, but she recovered quick. "Progress can't be stopped," she said, before turning on her heel and walking back to her Escalade. That's when I realized this was war. 2 weeks later, a county inspector showed up. Jake Morrison, Good man, honest eyes, hands calloused from real work. "Sorry about this," he said, flipping open his clipboard. "Got a complaint I've got to check out." We walked through the cabin together. He tapped the beams, checked wiring, studied the permits I'd kept in a folder since the 90s. Everything was by the book. When he was done, he gave a low whistle. "Son, this place is built better than most homes in town." Linda's first attack had failed. But she wasn't done. The next morning I found her business card stuck under my windshield wiper. On the back, in looping cursive, she'd written, "State Environmental Agency complaint filed. Illegal sewage disposal. You're done." I couldn't help but laugh. I called my old college buddy Marcus, now an environmental lawyer. He told me exactly what to do. Bring in a licensed septic inspector, document everything, keep receipts. The inspection truck arrived at dawn. Diesel engines growling, cold air smelling of mud and frost. Bob, the inspector, was an old-timer with a voice like gravel and hands like tree roots. After an hour of testing, he grinned. "Son, your system's cleaner than most city treatment plants. Whoever complained doesn't know what the hell they're talking about." Then he mentioned something interesting. "Funny thing, we got another complaint this week. Gray water discharge into Clearwater Creek, but it traced back to that fancy development down the road. Linda's own project was polluting the valley she claimed to protect. The irony was thicker than smoke from my chimney. By the time I hung up with Marcus that night, I knew two things. First, Linda Whitmore wasn't just arrogant, she was dangerous. Second, every move she made was giving me ammunition. The next day, the wind carried the scent of pine and diesel again. Linda's Escalade cruised past my gate, her window rolling down just enough for a puff of cigarette smoke to drift out. She thought she was untouchable. She had no idea what she'd started. And she definitely had no idea who she was dealing with. Linda Whitmore didn't believe in losing. The woman came at me like a storm that refused to quit. The week after her environmental stunt failed, I found another government truck parked at the end of my driveway. Fire marshal inspection this time. A tall woman in a crisp uniform stepped out, her clipboard already open. "Morning, I'm Fire Marshal Betty Chen. We've had a complaint about a dangerous wood stove installation." I almost laughed. "Let me guess, from Clearwater Estates?" She raised an eyebrow. "You could say that." Inside, Betty ran through her checklist with military precision, measured clearances, checked ventilation, photographed every joint. Her assistants moved quietly, the smell of metal tools mixing with pine smoke. After 20 minutes, she straightened up, expression unreadable. "You did this yourself?" she asked. "With my grandfather," I said. She nodded. "This is textbook work, better than most professionals. We might use these photos for training." That should have ended it. But Linda wasn't the type to quit after 3 strikes. The following week, a dark SUV pulled up while I was splitting firewood. A man in a state jacket got out, clipboard in hand. "Tom Rodriguez, Department of Natural Resources," he said, "got a report of unpermitted timber harvesting." I leaned on my axe. "You're kidding me." "Wish I was," he said, glancing toward the direction of Clearwater Estates. "5th time this month we've had to come out here. Cutting deadfall's perfectly legal, by the way. Keep doing what you're doing." He turned to leave, shaking his head. Some folks think owning land means owning everyone else around them. Linda was turning state agencies into her personal army, but every false report she filed left a paper trail, and every visit gave me new allies. The valley was starting to whisper about her. Maria Santos, who ran the local diner, told me Linda had accused her of health code violations. Old Pete, a retired logger, said Linda offered to buy his property for half its worth, then threatened to involve the county when he refused. Even David Kim, one of her own residents, confided over coffee that he'd been overcharged $50,000 for his lot. I wasn't the only one being hunted, so I decided to fight back. Marcus, my lawyer friend, started helping me build a harassment case. "Document everything," he said. "Every visit, every letter, every witness. She's digging her own grave." And dig she did. It started with noise complaints, cops knocking on my door at midnight while I sat reading by the fire. Then, wellness checks, claiming someone heard screaming. There was never anyone here but me and the wind through the pines. Deputy Johnson came so often he stopped bothering to knock. Same caller, he'd sigh, flipping through his notebook. All anonymous, but it's her. We can't prove it yet, but it's her. One Tuesday night around 11 p.m. he showed up again. The air was cold enough to bite through my pajamas as I stepped onto the porch. His cruiser lights painted my cabin red and blue. "Domestic disturbance report," he said, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry, but I have to check." Quote, "Deputy," I said, arms crossed, "does it look like I'm disturbing anyone out here?" He laughed softly. "No, sir, it doesn't." After he left, I sat by the fire for a long time. The crackle of wood was the only sound, but inside me something hard and cold was forming. This wasn't about annoyance anymore, it was about control. The next morning, I filed a harassment complaint with the county. Then I called Sarah Chen, a private investigator recommended by Marcus. She had the kind of quiet confidence that made you instantly trust her. "I specialize in patterns," she said over the phone. "Let me dig around." A week later, we met at Maria's diner. Sarah spread her files across the table between mugs of steaming coffee and the smell of cinnamon pie. "Your Linda has a history," she said. "She's done this before. 3 different towns, same playbook. Harass, intimidate, force a sale, and flip the property for a profit." She showed me photos, different faces, same tactics. HOA president, real estate developer, lawsuit queen. Each story ended the same way. Bankrupt neighbors, foreclosed properties, Linda walking away richer. But this time, she'd picked the wrong man. "Start gathering witnesses," Sarah said. "People she's hurt. You'll need them." The next few weeks felt like something out of a Western. Every local she'd bullied came forward. Maria with her diner, Pete with his land, David with his overcharge. By the time we were done, we had more evidence than a crime drama. And that's when I stumbled onto something big. While preparing my legal defense, I went down to the county records office, a quiet building with flickering fluorescent lights and the faint smell of old paper and coffee. I was looking for property maps to prove my boundaries. 14 hours later, my hands were shaking, my eyes burning, and I was staring at a document that made me forget how to breathe. My grandfather's original 1963 deed wasn't just a land title. It included something called comprehensive mineral and water rights across the entire Clearwater Valley. That meant every stream, every underground deposit under Linda's fancy homes technically belonged to me. I flipped through page after page, heart pounding. Then I found it. The original contract from the local bank. Linda's development loan was backed by collateral that included those same mineral rights. Rights she didn't actually own. If I wanted to, I could pull the rug right out from under her entire business. I sat there in that dusty records room, the hum of the overhead light buzzing like a bee, and thought about Grandpa. About all those summers he spent teaching me how to build, how to protect, how to stand my ground. He'd known this would happen one day. He'd left me the tools to win. That night I walked outside my cabin. The air smelled of wood smoke and pine resin. The stars burned sharp against the black sky. Somewhere down the road, Linda's house lights glowed like a firefly. She thought she was untouchable. But the truth was, she'd built her empire on my foundation. And soon I was going to take it all back. The morning of the showdown felt like the calm before a thunderstorm. The air carried that heavy silence right before lightning splits the sky. My cabin windows glowed with the orange light of dawn as I packed my briefcase. Documents, photos, maps, and one yellowed note from my grandfather that read, "Never let them take what's ours." Linda Whitmore's annual HOA meeting was that evening at the Clearwater Community Center, her big moment. She planned to announce Phase 2 expansion, a project built on the land she'd spent months trying to bully out of me. The problem for her was simple. She didn't own the rights to build a single inch of it. I'd spent the last few weeks building my case with a small army of allies. Marcus, my lawyer friend, drafted every legal motion like a weapon, Sarah Chen, the private investigator, traced every fake complaint and anonymous report back to Linda's phone and email. Carlos, Maria's nephew, a forensic accountant, uncovered that Linda had been using HOA dues to pay her personal legal bills. The picture was complete now. Fraud, harassment, embezzlement, forgery, and tonight it was all going public. When I pulled into the community center parking lot that evening, the sun was dipping low behind the mountains, painting the sky gold and crimson. People were already gathered outside. Neighbors, news reporters, even the county sheriff. The air buzzed with low conversation and the smell of coffee from Maria's diner truck parked near the doors. Inside, the place was packed. Every chair filled, people standing shoulder to shoulder. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the air felt thick with anticipation. Linda stood at the front, wearing a designer suit and a smile stretched too tight. Her expensive perfume hung in the air like smoke. The white Escalade keys jingled nervously in her hand as she called the meeting to order. "Tonight," she announced, "we're voting on Phase 2 expansion. This will bring prosperity to our community and increase property values for everyone." Her PowerPoint glowed behind her, showing glossy images of luxury homes spread across the valley, my valley. When the slide labeled Future Development Area appeared with a red circle around my cabin, something inside me went cold. I stood up. "Point of order?" Her voice cracked. "You have no standing here." I smiled. "Actually, I do, and I think everyone here deserves to know why." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sheriff's deputies shifted at the back. I connected my laptop to the projector. The screen flashed, then filled with an image of my grandfather's 1963 deed. The words "Comprehensive Mineral and Water Rights Across Clearwater Valley" glowed under the projector light. "Linda Whitmore," I said, my voice steady, "has spent months harassing property owners and filing false reports to steal land she has no right to develop. This document shows that every inch of the valley, including the land under her homes, is still under my family's control." Gasps filled the room. Linda laughed too loudly. "Those documents are fake. He's just a squatter playing land baron." Marcus stepped forward, holding up certified copies of county filings. "These are official records, Your Honor." He paused, glancing at the seated county judge who'd come as a guest, and notarized by the same office that approved Ms. Whitmore's development loan. The crowd started whispering. The tension thickened until it felt like you could slice it. Then came the avalanche. Carlos showed proof of Linda's embezzlement from HOA accounts. Sarah displayed screenshots of her fake environmental complaints traced to her devices. Marcus revealed that Linda's forged 1987 deed used a notary stamp from a woman who died 2 years before the supposed signing. Linda's lawyer paled as each slide hit the screen like hammer blows. Maria stood up from the crowd, voice trembling with anger. "You tried to ruin my diner for a parking lot, Linda. You spread lies about health codes just to pressure me into selling." Old Pete rose next, steady as a mountain. "You threatened me with eminent domain, told me the government would take my land if I didn't sell to you. You lied." David Kim, one of Linda's own buyers, stepped forward, holding papers. "You overcharged me $50,000 and called it a premium location fee. That's theft." The crowd's murmur turned into outrage. People stood, pointing, demanding answers. Linda's face went red, then white. "You people don't understand!" "I was protecting this community from squatters, and..." That's when a man in a dark suit stood up at the back. "Robert Chen, First National Bank," he said, voice cutting through the chaos. "Ms. Whitmore, your construction loan is in default. Your collateral is invalid. We're repossessing your assets effective immediately." The room went silent. Linda froze. "You can't do that." Robert's expression didn't change. "We already did." In that moment, Linda cracked. Her voice rose to a shriek. "He set me up. Those papers are fake. I forged them perfectly. You can't prove." The whole room gasped. Deputy Johnson stepped forward, notebook in hand. "Ma'am, did you just admit to forging legal documents on camera?" Linda's face drained of color. The TV cameras zoomed in as she stammered something about misunderstanding. The meeting erupted. People cheering, shouting, clapping. Maria hugged me. Old Pete shook my hand hard enough to hurt. The board voted 87% to 13% against Phase 2. Then, by unanimous decision, they voted Linda out as HOA president. Maria was elected in her place before the night ended. As deputies led Linda out in handcuffs, her perfume trailing behind like smoke from a dying fire, I finally exhaled. Months of tension left my body all at once. The next week, the county prosecutor charged Linda with fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. Her company went bankrupt. Her properties went into foreclosure. And the valley? It healed. I created the Clearwater Conservation Trust, protecting 1,800 acres of watershed from future development. We used Linda's forfeited assets to fund scholarships for local kids. Maria's diner became the new community center. Old Pete's land value doubled under conservation protection. David Kim recovered his stolen money and helped coordinate volunteer programs. Every fall, we hold a harvest festival in the same community center where Linda tried to take us down. The smell of wood smoke, baked pies, and coffee fills the air while kids run between the trees. The laughter echoes through the valley that almost became a playground for greed. Some evenings, I sit on my porch as the sun sinks behind the pines. The air smells clean, sap, smoke, and cold mountain wind. In the distance, the white frame of Linda's old office sits abandoned, ivy crawling over the Whitmore Properties sign. I unfold Grandpa's note one last time. Never let them take what's ours. I whisper back, I didn't, Grandpa. The valley is safe, the land endures, and as long as I draw breath, no one, no HOA, no developer, no Karen will ever take it again.